Hey, Decathlon Gamer, welcome back to F1 Manager 23. This is episode number 8. I am this close to having a usable database editor that will circumvent the 2-year rule for F2, F3 to get us Florsch and Gotti into the seat. It's functional as far as I can alter the save, get them in the seat, but the game will crash when I get to the race weekend, and I'm fairly certain that it has to do with circumventing that 2-year rule. The modder who is creating this database editor is working on it on a daily basis or near daily basis and has made multiple changes over the week plus that I've been following them in this process, and hopefully they will have resolved that functionality portion soon so that we can get Florsch and Gotti into the seats not a year or 2 years from now, but sooner rather than later, and still potentially within this season. For that reason, I'm not necessarily rushing to get 5 races per episode out of the way so we can get to that point where we get them into the seat. It's close. Hopefully it's close. But in the meantime, Hunter Yini, we have as a holdover just to kind of show and test the process so that I do feel more confident in starting to work on the car and building it up so that we at least have a baseline knowing here's what it's like to have a driver of this caliber in the seat right now. And once we eventually get them into the seat, I'll feel confident that, hey, we did start with a baseline and we have that baseline to build from. We have that save your job situation to build from. But in the meantime, 3 upgrades finally. Most. We had only had 2 upgrades the entire year so far. 3 upgrades on the car for this race weekend as we head to Zandvoort. We are now above grid average when it comes to top speed. We were earlier in the year, but we weren't recently. But definitely still below grid average everywhere else. As for the rank on grid for that, you can see we have fallen off quite a bit. Top speed is 8th, but the acceleration is dead last. DRS effectiveness is definitely back end. Cornering, 15th, 14th. Dirty air tolerance is 13th. Tail end. Not worst, but very much tail end. Even with the 3 new upgrades. Brake cooling, 15th. Engine cooling, 13th. Total extra weight, 19th. Now, I hadn't mentioned that the extra weight piece, the performance piece, longevity of your parts, that's all new this year. Some of you who have played further on ahead have come to understand that if you shorten the life of the components a bit, you can actually get a lot more performance out of them in doing so, and we may have to go down that route. So that is a costly route, right, if you're shortening the life of the components. However, if we're crashing on a fairly regular basis anyway, a lot of the parts aren't making it to their full lifespan as it is. So I will play around with that with our next round of upgrades, but I already put everything in on the components as it were. Now, not sure if I have anything left time-wise. I'll go check that. I might have had a little bit held in reserve. Confirmation that we are done for this period, but it's also just 10 days until we start the next period, so I will wait that long, even without adding time, we can find gains on the chassis. We're still on the original design for the year, but everything comes at a cost, and right now we are hovering not far above zero when it comes to the finances, so we can't afford to do too much until we're earning better money. Kind of a slippery slope. It's hard for the small teams. You might have more time in the tunnel compared to other teams, but you don't have the finances to match them. Even with a cap on the spending, it still makes it hard for a small team to gain.
Hello, and a very warm welcome as we prepare for the Dutch Grand Prix. We're back from the summer break with topped up tans. Vacation, though, is now over, and it's time to get serious on the track for the second half of the F1 season. Get ready for some fighting between the sand dunes here at the Dutch Grand Prix. And the cameras now shift to Sergio Perez, concentrating on the race ahead.
It's a P2 start for them, an excellent opportunity, and no doubt they'll be looking to grab it with both hands.
This should certainly be a good one, folks. The drivers are ready and the crowds are waiting. It's the Dutch Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
And we've got racing underway here in the Netherlands at Zandvoort. Hunter Yini, of course, no surprise, starting from last place. Meanwhile, Sargent started P14, already up to P13 and pushing early on. The faster way to get around Zandvoort is with a two-stop strategy of a soft, medium, soft. Not getting through into Q3 should help us have those tires available to us. There is a one-stop strategy possible, but it looks like literally no one is opting to go for it, theoretically here, as I think it would have required a medium to hard compound. And Yini, the only driver on track who is opting for the mediums to start, but he is not going soft, medium, soft, or medium hard for that matter. He's going to go medium, soft, soft. We're already starting from last, so I'd rather get quicker as the race goes on and not have to worry about being held up in traffic. And you can see how we are very quickly off the back, though, as nobody is matching that pace. We might as well make sure that these tires last and set our tempo as we are losing contact quickly with other cars around us. So I do suspect that Yini will be quite slow compared to other cars here early on, but if Sargent can hang on, and we have done our 2 laps now, so everybody should be settling in. Let's go ahead and use the top-up feature for him to stay close. We do have a bit of a gap to some other cars, and actually Logan Sargent has started well with, he's one of only 2 cars that we're still holding out at 90%, or 3 cars that is. Already set you to top up, and you've somehow managed to use the rest of that going backwards. I see. And amazingly has very quickly lost ground on Magnussen. We were right there, right on the back of him, and suddenly we're 1.7 down and getting overtaken. We're still within a second on Hulkenberg, but it's not looking pretty. Now, the Haas is expected to be a faster car. What worries me today is it's Sonoda. Sonoda all the way up in P11. That is the danger zone for us. We need the Haas cars to overtake him. We need to hold De Vries at bay if possible, though our race really isn't with De Vries, or with Sonoda for that matter. It's Haas, it's McLaren that need to take it to those guys and overtake them as this race progresses. We can be 19th and 20th every race as long as the others do not. But Sonoda is already 3.5 seconds behind the front 10. So that's good, at least in terms of scoring points. But not only do we not need them to not score points, but we need to try to keep those guys out of P11, as that is our high point on the season. 12th or worse, no problem. Bottas goes wide on the bank, turn 3 into the wall. Is he going to be able to continue on from that one, or has he broken the suspension on that right front? At the moment, Yini is still P20, so it's clear that Bottas has been able to continue on. He's just down from 18th to P19. You can see he had been in that gap, and now the 2 Alfa Romeos are very much off pace. It's good to see that our car is faster, at least, than one team out here. And, Sargent, if he's competitive, then we definitely have a competitive car compared to the rest. I mean, we're ahead of the McLarens even, but it's lap 10. Sargent back in P14, back ahead of De Vries. That's who he's battling with here. And Sonoda is dropping down the order. Magnussen has caught up to him and passed him. They are 6 seconds behind the cars ahead. We've got wet weather coming. Oh my gosh, I forgot that we were expecting heavy rain for this one. I didn't even check it when I set up my pit strategy. How are we looking on this one? Oh man, I dropped the ball big time on that. All right, we are looking at full wet conditions. It's rapid, so we're gonna go straight to full wets when we do pit, when that rain begins to fall. It looks like we may get to intermediates for most of the remainder of the race. That last lap or two could push out of that, but there's gonna be no track grip at any stage, so it could remain full wets for the entirety of the rest of this race. And rain has begun to fall, so it is kicking off here. 0.12, it's not much yet, and the grip is still very high, so no reason for anyone to pit in just yet. But Sargent with the overtake on Hulkenberg, now P13, so using this transition period to our advantage, knowing that we don't have to hang on much longer, though Sargent already down to 54% is probably not good for, it's put them just a little bit below where others are. Time. And there you go. It's time. Pit stops are... Grip is still normal. It feels a little bit early. It does feel a little bit early. I'm going to try to wait one more lap. Let's go ahead and go back to pushing. Part of it's the tire life. I think why these guys are pitting. And they're going to intermediates. Ooh. Okay, well, we're at 1.0.
Conditions.
We're going to take the risk. We are going to take the risk. We are going to go full wets. We're going to try to save that pit stop. It's clear. It's very clear that you're going to need them. A couple laps on intermediates. Okay, rubber is now low. We'll see if our gamble pays off. Do we find ourselves being... saving a full pit stop, saving that 26 seconds? Do we find ourselves in a better position? We will not have the same pace. You could see it, we already do not have the same pace. But it's not so drastically off pace-wise that those guys were flying away from us. We didn't lose a ton of ground on those ahead of us. Piastri into the pits now as well. Sainz has matched us. Sainz has gone straight to the full wets. Sargent, 2.409. That's got to be our best stop of the year so far. Hulkenberg comes out behind us as he pits, so Sargent back up to 15th. Tires severely overheating. This is the problem with pitting and putting them on too early. But look at, we are into heavy rain conditions. It is intensifying. It's supposed to intensify even more. So this transition won't last long. These guys are putting on full wets. This is where we're going to have that gain. You can see we lost about 3 seconds on that lap. 3 seconds down on that lap. But 3 seconds for 1 or 2 laps is nothing, as most of the field is now transitioning to the full wets. But, oh my goodness. Wow, look at the extra wear though. So we are going to have to pit once again later on, as we are down to 70% because of the overheating. We are just ripping them to shreds right now. Oh, well, that's disappointing. That is disappointing. We get a head start, we save a pit stop, but we are going to require an extra pit stop soon enough. And Tsunoda still comes out in P11. Wow. Verstappen still out on the intermediates. Hamilton, Ocon as well. Okay, lesson learned. Lesson learned. I expected that we were going to be off by a few seconds. I knew that we were going to have some overheating issues and that they would burn faster. We would take some life out of them. Did not expect it to be this severe. But lessons learned, right? You live and you learn. Unless you try things, you're not going to find out. This time we find out the hard way. We find out the gamble and just how poorly that is turning out for us. Good news though, Yini is ahead of Bottas. Sargent is in the position he was in prior, but everybody's already made that extra pit stop other than Verstappen. So track has dried out a little bit. Let's check on status. Are we going to get into and stay in intermediates for a while? I think we might. track's going to get drier. I think we need to be on the intermediates and then back on the wets at the end of the race. This has changed. Now, our forecast department is still minimal, so it's nice to see that we are actually seeing variation over the course of the race on what is predicted. Really like that part. But it looks like we're going to be in an intermediate window for quite a while here, which means I think we should be pitting and coming back out on intermediates. Is that what others are doing? It is. It is. So a number of cars are pitting and shifting over to the intermediates. Sargent, both of our cars are a lap down now, though. So that part is a little bit problematic. Sargent, 3 seconds behind Hulkenberg now. Sonoda up in P10. That's a concern. That is absolutely a concern. Sonoda. We ride with Logan Sargent as he comes up to lap Yini. Yes, he is now suddenly from a half a lap to that gap has gone out quite rapidly to a full lap separating them. Unfortunate for Yini how quickly that all kind of transpired, right? But we are not pushing for position, so I'm going to push for longevity, keep our engines, keep our components bright for another day. In the case of Yini, in fact, let's just go ahead and go conserve, turn it down, preserve the life. It's going to make him slow, but so be it. And we've had a race incident, and it's Yini. Yini already had double punctured prior to this. So no idea how that happened because he's at 73%. But he double punctures and then goes into the wall unless the animation just doesn't show it right there. Because no idea what happened. I mean, he's going along just fine. And then all of a sudden we're showing double punctures and then he's crashing out of the race. So which one came first? Does he double puncture and then crash? Or did he crash and that's the double puncture? The animation shows differently, but I would suspect that the crash is the cause of the double puncture. But he's also got terminal gearbox damage, so just as I'm trying to conserve the life of said gearbox, he absolutely throttles himself into the wall, and that's that. Racing once again with 15 laps remaining. The heavy rain should be coming in about 4 minutes. So with that, we will be doing that final transition onto the full wets as we blue flag and go backwards. 3 cars overtaking us here. That is Alonso, Sainz, and Verstappen at the head of that group. Verstappen all the way down to P3 with his extra pit stop and well behind. But it is a battle at the front between Leclerc and Perez for the race lead on this one. Stroll also pretty close behind here, so Stroll should be overtaking us here shortly, and there he goes. De Vries now just 2.5 seconds behind. Back up to temperature, so back down to standard. Ooh, and now we're overheating. It's gone the wrong direction. It's still, what's going on here? We've already settled down. We've already backed off. Track's not too dry. We're on intermediates. Sonoda still hanging on to P10. Magnussen and Ocon both caught up. Ocon could not get past. Magnussen, over time, has gotten around Ocon, but neither has been able to get around Sonoda as of yet. 12 laps to go. This transition to the full wets is going to be hugely important. The heavy rain is coming. You can see the track is getting wetter moment by moment, and we've already had 4 cars dive off into the pits. Maybe this is our time. Magnussen and Ocon pitting first before Sonoda. That could be the move we need. Can they both come out ahead of him in 1 lap's time? P11 this season. Magnussen is ahead of Sonoda. Ocon is not, but we've got him out of the points. All we need is Ocon to now get around Sonoda at some point in the next 10 laps. Hulkenberg in the pits. There we go. We're in that working window. Actually, I think we can afford to push as long as it only makes us semi-overheat.
Copy.
We could use the extra pace. De Vries now 2 seconds behind. Pitting that lap earlier, we gained about a second. Tsunoda, 2.5 behind Magnussen, so this could be a good opportunity. He's going to have that lower pace. And Ocon, love to see him challenge and get around Tsunoda, get him down to that P12. Final lap, rain has lifted here right at the end. As I cross the start-finish line, I will begin my final lap as the race leader. Leclerc just behind us, ready to lap us once again. We are going to finish, I think, one lap down. Yes, one lap down for us, with Leclerc finishing ahead of Perez by under a second, but a huge gap to Verstappen. Sainz, Stroll gets up around Alonso, then Hamilton, Russell, Gasly, P9. Magnussen does get P10. However, Ocon never could get around Tsunoda. He follows him for like 40-something laps and never could pass him. Disappointing there, as Tsunoda now has matched our best with a P11. What about your next best result? Then becomes the tiebreaker from there. In Albon's case, we've had P11, I think, more than once. So as a team, we should still be ahead. But are we going to get that credit, or are they going to now kind of count Sargent as our main guy? In which case, he's only finished P11 once. What has Sargent's next best result been? Something like a 13th or 14th. Today, it's P15. Bottas was 3 laps down. I think Yini would have been that 3 laps down. He wasn't horribly far behind him, but we did have that stretch there where he lost a lot of ground pretty rapidly. In the head-to-head, Albon is still above Tsunoda, but Tsunoda is above Sargent now. So Tsunoda has moved above Sargent, so some of our ground has now been ruined for us. But it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. In real life, it shouldn't matter. If Albon is above Tsunoda, Williams is still above AlphaTauri. He made that performance in our car. It does count for our car, even though he's not driving for us now. But what about in-game? In-game, Williams is still above AlphaTauri. So yes, they are attributing that appropriately. It's getting tight, though. It's getting tight. Another 11th place could do it for AlphaTauri, for Tsunoda. And obviously any 10th place would do it. McLaren still just on those 3 points, but 3 points is 3 points, and that puts them ahead of us. Probably for the long haul. I don't suspect Sargent's going to be scoring points anytime soon. We are working on the car now, so maybe with an improved car, he can move back up the grid order just a little bit. Today, we were definitely faster than McLaren. I never caught it, but Sargent's second pit stop was a 2.387. That was the first time this season we've been able to get under a 2.4. Still not good enough for top 10, but I'll take it. It's progress for our pit crew.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, with the Italian Grand Prix.
In general, what I'm noticing is attribute ranking wise, and of course some of the attributes are purely down to pace, some are not. But if we're talking about averages, which is very much a summary of the attribute rankings, and will more or less give you an idea. What I'm noticing is for every 5 points of average, we're talking about probably half a second difference. So for every 10 points, we're talking about a 1 second difference in terms of what the driver can get out of the car. So somebody in the low 80s, Albon, is about half a second a lap faster than somebody in the high 70s, high mid 70s in Logan Sargent. Somebody who is 20 points ahead, Sargent to Yini, is easily a second a lap faster in race than Hunter Yini, if not significantly more. It does seem to scale down a little bit the further behind you are, but that's my guess on kind of where we're at. So we're talking about 1 to 2 seconds a lap difference between Logan Sargent and Hunter Yini. However, Yini has just put in a very good qualifying. Sargent got 16th out in Q1. However, there's a lot of penalties up and down the grid, so he can be moving up quite a bit from there. De Vries, Bottas, both among those who have picked up penalties as well. But Hunter Yini, for the first time, has out-qualified another driver, Zhou Guan Yu. A 10th down on him. In practice, he was about half a second off the pace of Zhou Guan Yu. that could come down to more of a race pace situation. But does that mean he can actually stay competitive and be behind another driver with DRS? Can he stay up on him? Love to see it, if that's possible.
All 10 teams are now getting set up as the drivers prepare to face the 53 laps of the Italian Grand Prix. De Vries getting settled and readying himself for the race.
Not a huge surprise to see them on the back row, but they've certainly got the potential to move up from here.
And the time has come. Let's go racing. Here we are at the oldest circuit in Europe for this, the Italian Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
And we're racing. It's only 53 laps here. Sargent started from P15, Yini all the way up to P16 to start this one. Good to see that with those penalties out there that we moved up a little bit. What we need to keep an eye on, of course, is the AlphaTauri, who's now the big threat to. They seem to be finding more pace at this point in the season, but today not looking like they've got it. Plus we're ahead, so Sargent already ahead of the 4 key drivers that we need to be ahead of. But we have a lap 1 incident at the back of the grid. It's behind us where it has taken place.
Bottas, I believe.
Bottas again. Wow, that is being done dirty by the game this year. Oh, it's the AlphaTauri, comes back across and wipes him out. Oof. I think that's De Vries. Riding on board with Yini as we resume racing, going around the Parabolica and heading down through the main straight. Yini currently P17, Sargent P15, and Hunter right up on the back of Sonoda. The great news is those 2 cars have taken each other out of the race, costing them damage, repairs, finances that are going to have to go into replacing those parts, but also making life much easier on us today that Bottas and De Vries are out of this race and will not make it to the finish. So 2 of our 4 primary competitors have been removed from the equation. Lap 6 as we are back underway. You can see Hunter already struggling to keep up, more than a second behind Sonoda. Just doesn't quite have the pace, doesn't quite get the most out of the car, but you make the car fast enough, and even though he doesn't have the quality, he'll start being competitive with these guys. But we need to get maybe another second a lap out of this car for that to happen, and then at some phase, some stage here, Sargent will also be replaced, and that's going to be where we're at, struggling to keep up, mostly because of quality of driver. For now, though, he is ahead. Wow, that happened really fast. We've only done not even 2 laps, and they are empty. Back to neutral for both guys.
DRS enabled.
Let's also go ahead and back off here.
Okay,
Back off here to get those tires
short-term.
under control. We'll keep pushing with the fuel a little bit longer. I'm loving that Hunter Yini is ahead of a car and staying ahead of him for the time being, and has done it in absolutely no manner other than started the race ahead of him and is still ahead of him. It's not because Joe has taken on damage, has made an extra pit stop, is 30 seconds behind us, and has caught past us. He's ahead of him and has stayed ahead of him. And we have our next crash. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Sargent involved.
Right, we're taking the second corner, and you can see how tight it is. And oh,
The
that's
AlphaTauri
obviously
squeezing him
intentional,
off, not giving
but
him
there
racing
was
room on the
contact.
inside there.
Something's not right.
Minor front wing damage.
Yeah, the wing is damaged.
Sonoda picking up the penalty for not giving us the room there on the track. Just that minor front wing damage is all, so we will continue on as is. There's our second competitor removed from the equation. Plus, Joe being held up by Yini is making things very possible for us to keep them at bay for the day. By my estimates, Sargent's lap times are down by about half a second a lap. So we are going to go ahead and change that wing. It does add 7.5 seconds, but hopefully over the next 28 laps, he's going to recover that time and then some. So I'm hoping that this is going to ultimately save about 14 seconds at the cost of 7.5. We'll see if that is accurate or not, but too late now. Wait, he didn't change the tire. I clicked. Oh my gosh. I changed the tires, but it didn't happen. Apparently, I completely forgot. I did. It's my flippin' bad. So, okay. Well, now I just ruined Sargent's race. And we have a crash heading to turn 1. Yeany on the inside. He's the one fully ahead. That doesn't look like it's Yeany's fault. Zhou was the one. Those two have been battling back and forth. They've been racing head to head. This has been awesome to see that he can get ahead of a car, stay ahead of a car, re-overtake, but he's out of the race. And there is no penalty for Zhou, meaning they think Yeany's at fault, even though he's car length ahead and Zhou does not have the right to the corner from that position. That's disappointing. Yeah, Yeany's picking up a penalty on top of it. That is very disappointing. How can a car who's 90% ahead of the other car be at fault? One can assume about 20 seconds was lost with the extra pit stop. So in theory, even though we had to re-overtake Zhou and Tsunoda, we've done exactly that. And as we're 26 seconds behind Piastri, nothing's changed. So at least there's that. P15 for Sargent. It's not a great result, but we have beaten our direct competitors. Yeany technically, even though it's a DNF, so it's not even classified, technically 18th. He does manage to beat a couple drivers, but more importantly, he was competitive with the back end of the grid. That's big. This is a speed-heavy track. However, it's acceleration, not top speed, that you need here. Our acceleration is last. So, all in all, we'll take that. I think today is a bit of a win for us. Verstappen, the actual winner though, ahead of Perez, ahead of Leclerc. That's going to help them close that gap. Ferrari has been pretty comfortable in the standings. Leclerc still leads in the driver's standings, but Verstappen has now matched Sergio Perez, his teammate, each on 247 points. Quite a ways, nearly 80 points behind Charles Leclerc, 78. That's a 3-race lead, a full 3-race lead for Leclerc at this stage of the season. He has 7 wins so far this year. In the constructors, they are 56 points ahead of the Red Bull. Aston Martin at 309, well behind. Mercedes at 201, pretty comfortable as the 4th place team, occasionally challenging Aston Martin, but not very often. Alpine on 64 is clearly best of the rest. Not always getting those points. Sometimes it's Haas. On a couple of occasions it's been McLaren, but it's mostly Alpine filling out that next spot. But as long as we stay ahead of AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo, this will be a successful season for us. Let's just hope that we can get a couple drivers into the race seats sooner rather than later. And if we're seeing somebody on the same level, Hunter Yeany, competing at the back end of the grid with an Alfa Romeo, then I'm liking our chances for next season as we develop the car that little bit more, that we can effectively compete for that P8 sort of range. We're not going to be moving up the grid further anytime soon with the quality of driver, but if we can get the quality of car at a certain level, then I like our chances long term of remaining competitive and competing. And as the drivers do catch up as well, eventually competing at the top. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.